Sometimes I need to be reminded.
All right.
Okay. We are live.
You're live.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. This is a Nexus Live event. I guess we just go over the scope. So we like to keep a good practice with team communication with the course. So we figured this was a great way to bring everybody together. You can see all of us. We got Brian here, too. He's joining the team. We got Ashley and Jess over there. Yeah, we got a hand. And so we're all coming here. We're going to give just a little brief update on some things. Some of it may be old news to you. Some of it may be new, but we wanted to go through a quick summary of what's been happening and then open up the floor to you guys so that we can start getting some questions answered. If you want technical questions on the 3DC, if you want to know what happened at the conference, or if you want to have better ideas of what to expect in the future, what's being developed, those types of things are going to be really good questions. So this way that we can kind of bring more clarity to everybody and open up the floor and create more team kind of community communication so that everybody can understand what's happening and we can all be there. So welcome to YouTube Live.
Yes, welcome everybody. I'm excited because we actually got this up on time.
Yeah, good.
So what are some of the things, I guess I'll ask a question first. What are some of the things you've been doing since after the conference?
Me? Well, specifically, I've been training Brian right here. So he's joining on full time with coding. So as you can see, running in the background, getting Tritium polished and ready for the Tritium Trust update, finalizing some of the architectures and getting the actual game plan together of how we're going to unlock this three-dimensional chain through the Tau framework, finalizing these architectures. We've been getting set up with a lot of organizational tools. Brian's been doing that on getting basically team coordination a little bit better with kind of having ticketing systems, things like that. And then, of course, getting code pounded out every day and working on designing some new website. We've been conceptualizing. We'll get to Jacinda on that with the Nexus Hub, things like that. And just.
Okay, excellent. Brian, what are some of the organization things that you're doing for getting the dev team kind of on board with development and in an organized way?
So I'm bringing an agile framework to the team to increase communication and allow everyone to have a voice and basically keep track of each individual step and idea that we come up with. So that way we're not repeating ourselves or losing track of where we're going. So if anyone's not familiar with the agile framework, I can actually explain that further.
Yes, please do explain.
Okay, so we're using Jira. It's an Atlassian tool. It's used for ticket tracking. You can give yourself like a burn down chart, like, okay, in the next 2 weeks, what can we accomplish? And basically that's called a sprint. And you would code and describe and document and basically turning development that you would 6 months of development and then potentially have things where people are like, I don't like that. It actually turns it into every 2 weeks you have a working product at the end of 2 weeks. And then everyone can give feedback on smaller updates rather than having to do a large push.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions they can think of right off the top of their head?
I think we should give some background to Brian. I think it was really interesting to get to know Brian here since he's been out working with Colin. Brian, how you were a TA for like all different levels of classes of coding at your college. And it was like you could essentially just teach all these courses. So I'm really excited to have Brian on the team because it's provided so much like, good, this is a way we're going to structure it and break it down and be able to give good releases. So Brian, can you just touch on your TA experience a little bit? Because I thought that's important.
Yeah, definitely. So I just was going to Millersville University, and as a freshman, they made me take all the intro courses. And I got really good grades in them, A's, B's. So I signed up for tutoring because I've never not had a job in my life. So I was going to school, and I figured I may as well couple the two together. And as a teacher's assistant / tutor, private teacher, I was doing group tutoring. They only allow you to tutor the bottom 2 level courses because after that, they kind of want everyone to really be able to grasp it on their own or network within their own groups of friends. And what I ended up doing was I got really good grades in all my courses. And because I was just sitting there, you know, tutoring, and people could come in and just ask questions, I started tutoring the 200, 300, 400 level courses, and really good environment. And I don't think anyone has actually replaced me yet at that college, being a tutor across all the courses. So that was a really good experience, and it was a good growing and teaching experience.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I did see one question come in about the wallet. Will the Tritium release with a mobile wallet? And can we expect any NFC functionality in the future?
Mobile wallets coming. We've been working with Konami for a while. It's pretty difficult to get it added since we're so drastically different. So that should be coming soon. I mean, it's been a while in the making, but that's going to be an Android functional wallet now. As far as the Tritium, it's coming along really well. The GUI, we've got Brian's team working on that framework. Yep. And getting that up and going. We're going to be kind of linking. It's written in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so it's web compatible as well. So I mean, one of the ultimate goals is kind of having what's like a reverse proxy registry system on a lot of the main nodes, so that people can essentially register a port, and then you can connect in through the web securely without having to worry about having incoming connections, because incoming connections create the problem. And then if somebody tries to authorize themselves with your symmetric key, which would just be your encryption key, and it's, you know, let's say a bad password attempt twice, then you can just disconnect from that reverse proxy. So that's something that we were thinking, because iOS has a lot of constraints. It's really hard to get a wallet on an iOS app store, and it has to be signed by Apple's keys. That's also, you know, I mean, the Android store is cool. Konami is cool, but it's got a whole other one. So we want more specialized. So as far as specialized, well, it's just going to take whole other teams of developers, which we're always looking for. But the simplest way of thinking about it is actually working with your web browser and being able to remotely connect with your wallet. Even if you have, let's say, a mining node on a server, you can just connect directly to that to connect to your computer. And I mean, it's all encrypted, should be secure. So that's kind of the way that we've been thinking of bridging that right now, in, you know, lieu of having to deal with the resistance that we're gonna have to deal with Apple.
Can you back up and have Brian explain his team and who's working on the wallet?
Yeah, definitely. So my team is I'm actually started an LLC in February. We're Eidetic Mind, and it's a team of 5 people, 4 potentially bringing on 1 more. And it's Paul Perfidio, Brian Hallmark, and Dante McDaniel, and potentially Kyle Ketterer. We're bringing these guys into the team to do web development, so we're going to be working on the Nexus Earth, the Nexus.io site, but also Dante is going to be helping specifically with creating the web GUI, or not the web GUI, the wallet GUI, and just we're going agile, so we got to like explain all of the different parts to them right now, because right now the communication has been, this is what we want, but we need to break it down. So my team's going to help with that, and we're also going to you know, integrate more and more here with Nexus as we grow as a partnership.
Cool.
Real quick, I was seeing everybody checking in from like where they are. Let us know where you guys are. You know, one thing about Nexus that I'm really excited about is how we're connecting so many people. And for those of you who made it to the conference, like you could literally feel it with the cool connections that happened, and knowing that that meetup happened in 2 months. It was unreal. And then beyond that, just so you guys know, in case you didn't know, we got everything on video. So we're going through a ton of footage, and we'll be releasing this out to you guys. So we're really excited about it. But yeah, I love seeing, look at like the UK, Sydney, LA, Miami. That's awesome. So yeah, it's cool to see the support worldwide, because that's what we are really aiming for, is this worldwide adoption of it and building for that. So I'm excited to just, hey everybody.
It is really.
I think that, that brings something that it's a really big goal of mine to get as much decentralization into Nexus as possible. And the way we're doing that is a lot by using our Slack connections and grabbing people from all over the world that are interested in helping. I remember when I came in, I was like, here, tell Colin this. Here, tell Colin this. And he was like, no, you tell Colin. And I was like, but I'm not in Nexus. He's like, everyone is in Nexus. If you are in the world, you are in Nexus, basically. So I was like, okay, so that's how I started getting involved. And now I keep getting more and more and more and more involved. And one of the things that I love about it is bringing people in. So my goal is to create the Nexus Hub. And the hub, how I envision that is that it will live, eventually on the website. And what it'll be is people will come in. Right now you can do it in Slack. You can come in and say, hey, this is my skill set. This is how I want to get involved. And so I've been grabbing people all over from Slack and pulling them in as much as I possibly can and bringing them into the Nexus. And they bring themselves in, really, but I just like to collect them when they come in. And so that they can direct them into like some area that really works well for them. So, I just envision the hub being a great place for you to come in eventually, and you list kind of a skill set you have, what you're excited about working on, what you'd like to see happen, and then we'll give you a team lead kind of that will help direct you into, a flow of Nexus somehow, some way. And, I think Andreas Antonopoulos, it was really funny because he was talking about how 3,000 people following their passion will, demolish any other thing that is like a corporate structure working on it. So, right, you can have a core team, but that 3,000 people following their passion are going to do wonders for what, and I have seen that is what I have seen. That's how the conference came together. And it's just so amazing to watch and be a part of. I cannot say enough about it. And I'm really excited about all the new team members that are really coming on board lately. So, that brings me to Diana, who has come on board recently, and she is, she came on board to do, to help bring the conference together. And she her excitement is, and I'll let you go ahead and take that, Diana. Go ahead and tell us what your excitement is.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Diana, I'm from Colorado, which was where the conference was, which is amazing. It's a magical place. So the interesting thing is, when I found out about Nexus right before the conference, I was so excited about it. I literally dropped everything in my life, and this has been my entire focus since I found out about it. The amount of technology and the level of I don't know, Colin's mind is just insane. And as I learn more and more and I understand it and the applications and what we can do with it, like right now, I just want to jump out. Like, I just want to go build something with this blockchain technology because it's just that amazing. And so I was happy to come on board. My background a little bit, I just retired out of the Army last year. I was first sergeant. I did 4 tours. I've had Bronze Star. I worked with government contracts and international relations. So making connections, whoop, whoop, Nexus, making connections is what I do. And so it just felt like a perfect fit. And when we talk about not having that corporate structure, I feel like I thrive because there's nobody stifling where I see this process going. If anything, we embrace each other. We encourage each other. We help each other move forward with it. And I'm just excited to get it out there and to tell everybody about it and to let it change the world the way it was designed to do. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
And tell them what your main goal is. Where is your focus right now? What are you going to execute on now that you're in?
Well, so I'm good at public speaking. So if you're going to be at the Bitcoin conference in Texas, the 28th and 29th, please come out. I'm really excited to do it. I'm excited to kind of explain to everybody my life situations and where I see blockchain and crypto and all that stuff fitting in. But I want to take Nexus and relay it in a ways to where wallets and partnerships and just get everybody as excited about it as I am, because it is amazing technology. It is something that is going to revolutionize the world. And if you don't know about it, you're missing out. And so I want to be the connector to get everybody to see that technology and how it connects into you and how you can use it to make everybody's world better.
All right. Here, we haven't heard from you yet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you see and what you like to bring to Nexus?
I mean, I come at it from the financial side of things a lot, and I elucidated that in my speech at the conference, so anybody can go online and check that out. What I'm working on right now, I mean, I'm working on strategy. That's what I'm really good at. So I'm laying out a strategy for us to move forward and basically just organizing all these big ideas and then putting them down on paper and organizing like things that people can do. It's a decentralized system, but we still need leaders. So, you know, my idea is in order to facilitate things like the Nexus Hub, for example, we want to break things down into executables that we can do. So I'm just making outlines, nested in outlines of all these things that we can do. And if we can, imagine we can identify 10,000 things to do, but there's only 5 people to do it. Well, with this, we can identify those things, and then we can start putting it out there in Slack and breaking it down into these smaller things, and really having like a decentralized like army, for lack of a better word, of people who can help work on this stuff. So I'm just experimenting with you know, how to lead a system that is more decentralized. So I have experience running companies, and I'm taking that experience and porting it over into this new type of system. And, you know, we're playing with it. We're learning as we go. So we take the best lessons that we know from these companies, and then we insert it into this new thought paradigm where, you know, theoretically it will be much more powerful with the network effects of it over time. So we're learning as we go, and that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm excited about. Obviously, it's going to revamp the whole world's financial system, and that's the true big potential of it. So I mean, there's so many benefits to what this can do for society, and that's why I think everybody should be taking notice of this and you know, wanting to participate. If you want to help do something that will affect literally billions of people, this is a project you can join, and you don't have to have our permission to join. Like, you can just join, you can help out, and you can look and bring in your own ideas and your own thoughts. And if you can't get our attention enough, you can start doing things on your own. You can create companies on top of this. There's so much you can do with it, because it's a core-based technology that spreads out into many, many, many other realms all throughout the world. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about working on that. I'm excited about helping to lead this group, you know, in whatever way I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That brings up one thing that really I like to hammer on with Nexus is what we already are. You know, I think because Nexus is such a big dreamer idea, we forget to highlight like what we already have existing and operating now. You know, like they talk about the length of the hash, and if you're not familiar with that, how important it is. We talk about transactions per second. This morning we calculated it, and on average we're at like what, 50 or 60 transactions per second. So and then we've got Deanna's screen. I don't know if everybody's able to click on it or not, but she's showing a difference between a Bitcoin hash and a Nexus hash. Kiara Collin, who wants to take why that even matters? Like, I feel like it can just lead into it, unless everybody already knows.
Well, I mean, one big reason is the quantum computers. I mean, we just saw the Intel chip that came out. I mean, they're already starting to produce it, and they're like, hey, look, we made this. And I mean, the Google D-Wave's 2,000 to 4,000 qubits. I mean, granted, it's not, they haven't come up with a universal quantum computer, because quantum computers are ASIC, you know, basically. But like, I mean, the fact is, like, Bitcoin security is based around the security of the, you know, 256-bit Colbit's curve using ACC, which can easily be reversed at about 1792 qubits. So, I mean, that's a big thing that we're addressing too with the digital signatures. And actually, Brian and I have been conceptualizing that. I mean, that's been really fun. Like our new digital signature sig chain encryption algorithm, and a bunch of fun stuff. We're passing it around to like different higher ups too. Like, hey guys, like, I mean, this is our idea, but we want to make sure that it's sound. And I mean, also the fact that SK, right, Scan and Kekek, every output length, I mean, Grover's algorithm on a quantum computer reduces your hash length by 2. But since we have 2 hashing algorithms, we have 512 security. So SK512 is 512-bit quantum secure, which is really, really unique too. And a lot of people, I mean, back in the days were saying, I mean, back in 2014 when we started this, people weren't really looking into quantum computers because the rumors were there were 2 or 3 qubits. But then NSA started building encryption quacking quantum computers. The reason this is so important is because quantum computers will destroy cryptography, and cryptography is something that allows us that freedom. It's like the crossbow that the crown used to have, or taking away, our guns or our rights. I mean, it's something that allows us our right to privacy. And as Edward Snowden said, I mean, the greatest things in life come from your privacy. You spend your time building your act, you build your things in your privacy, and then you're ready to bring it to the world. And that's something that we really need to take very seriously. And that's something that we work very hard on at Nexus to make sure that we are at the cutting edge of all the new computing technology. I mean, especially if some of you read the white paper, I mean, a Bitcoin key already has side channel attacks with over 200 signatures, which is another problem. So there's all these things that are taken into account, especially, I mean, Bitcoin proof of work. That isn't useful for anything but Bitcoin, but we're actually helping encryption and number theory with the prime numbers. So, I mean, all these things exist already, let alone this growing effervescent community, which, I mean, is really truly voluntary based, because we're building a decentralized system here, and there's no given model for it. Just like there was no model of how to build Bitcoin back in the day when I started building Nexus. You couldn't go and say, how do I build Bitcoin? No, you had to look through the code. You had to learn the code. You had to learn to think differently. You had to work on the competing edges. You had to figure out all these problems that weren't solved yet. And so being on the cutting edge of this is very exciting for me. Like, forging this new technology. And that's one thing Brian, he's been saying, oh man, like I've been working for a Fortune 100 company and I'm finally feel challenged. So cool. He's like, this is so cool. I'm like being challenged here, man. And like, that's something that's really cool. Like Brian and I have a really cool synergy, and we've been making a lot of waves. And what we were even talking about protein synthesis and like DNA and like molding it and creating an immune system in the network with the trust. And like, then you'll know if a virus is injecting bad data into it. And I mean, the whole network itself is becoming a life force of its own, let alone the people and the connections we're forging. And the conference was a huge, how should I say it, symbol of that. I mean, the energy there was so high vibration. Everyone was excited. There was people that just serendipitously rolled in there and were like, I was just on vacation in Aspen, and then all of a sudden I ran into this conference here. I mean, there was airplanes of people, like my dad's riding, he's like, the whole airplane's going to the Aspen conference. And we're like, whoa, I mean, we had 430 people total. It was incredible synergy. Just like, I mean, having so many different industries and people that are realizing this cutting edge technology and how it's really changing the world. And it's really an honor to be kind of forerunners of that in a lot of ways, forging new technology, not only just like technology and the actual computing architectures, but technology in the ways to think. Because, I mean, speaking with Ron Paul a little bit, he says it's a big philosophical issue that we're facing right now. I mean, we can build all this technology, but if people just continue to accept things that aren't in their greatest benefit, and the greatest benefit of all, then we're going to end up with the same problems again, just with flashier technology. So, I mean, it was also just a great honor to learn from these people. I mean, they're incredible people and great minds to be a part of it.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that I think that really brings up is some of the things that came out of the conference, which there's a lot of stuff that we're like on the verge of being able to tell people, but not there yet. And I do want everybody to know that we have been meeting with heads of industries in the entertainment world and insurance, all kinds of different things that we think will provide a ton of value for the world in the future. And so we're really excited to bring those to you guys. Unfortunately, it's only been a little bit since the conference. What are we at, 3 weeks since the conference? And, so those aren't all completely solidified to bring public yet, but I'm telling you, there are really great things in the works, and I cannot say enough about how excited I am about that. So I think a ton of people are going to appreciate the things we have to say in the near future. But I have this little comment here that I'm just cracking up about, and I think everybody will appreciate it. So one person said that Albert Einstein would have really enjoyed Colin's brain. I thought that was a great comment. So I'm loving these comments on the side over here. So
I thought you were looking at the where do I get this Nexus swag? We're
yeah,
that out there for sure.
I mean,
we're so busy at the conference, I didn't even get a shirt.
Check out Nexus shirt.
Yeah.
You got to keep talking to keep your screen up.
Yeah. That's all I have anymore is Nexus shirts.
We got Nexus. I'll have Nexus shirts at the Bitcoin conference. So if you come to the Bitcoin conference and you can get some swag.
One other thing to add on to Jacinda was saying as well is, a lot of people are always looking for instant things that happen out of conferences and discussions. A lot of this is building relationships and building the foundations like we've done all along with Nexus to make those connections, and those things do take time, and you will see the fruits of those efforts coming through over time. Not everything's going to be an immediate you're going to see an immediate result. This is a long scale project that relationships are important to build the foundation with those relationships, and you will see results.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing too, is that, because we are building it in such a decentralized kind of fashion and really trying to bring in as many people as we can so that they can all contribute within their ability or their time, because like Colin always says, not everybody has, what do you guys say? Not everybody has money, but everybody has time. Yep. So, the time that people have to contribute and be able to help build this, we really want to, and capture that and bring it in and nurture that. So, that takes a little bit more time because it's not just building a company. It's building a company that can grow into a decentralized network, which is very different. And so, nurturing even just the ability for all of us to communicate is a different type of system than we've ever done before, because nobody's anybody's boss necessarily, but everybody wants to be on the same page and build this in the right direction. So, we really, it's a different system. So learning how to build that system is another, dynamic that I don't think that every cryptocurrency is bringing. And one other thing that I, was really excited to find out, because I've been involved with cryptocurrency for about 2 years now. And when I came in, I was listening to people, and I will not name any names because there were a lot of people that have been in crypto space for a lot longer than I have. And they were just now coming to the realizations that Colin introduced me to a year ago and has been working on, or I'm sorry, 2 years ago, and has been working on for years. So I thought it was really actually, it was a realization for me of like how far ahead and forward the Nexus thinking is compared to what other people are running into. And I think, Colin, maybe you can do this demonstration again, because I've been using it, but I don't want to say it on here in case I would mess it up, but about how, what Bitcoin's challenge is and how, the difference between, the three-dimensional architecture you're building versus the 2D that, everyone is used to and just now learning about, but you're on a different level with it. So if you could explain like how it backs up and where it has to go, that would be great.
Well, I'll do my best in layman's terms, but I mean, essentially a Bitcoin is like a glorified linked list for a computer program, which means every block links to itself, and every new block has to have that link previous to it hashed in there so that that work itself is done, so that you can't rewrite all of that data. But it's one-dimensional in the way that it's like a flowing river, and if you have more water that needs to flow through this river, it's going to back it up and it's going to create dams. So what we're doing is we're allowing it to expand out in multiple directions as it's needed, but be chained that way too. So chained this way, and this way, and then weighted down and up this way with the trust and the actual computation. And then also, I mean, removing the mining pools from it by making it a decentralized mining pool, which, the miners can do the processing. And then the 3DC also has 3 different tiers of it. So 3 layers of verification. So your transaction locking done right here, which can be done on cell phones around the world, which is something that we've started really formalizing, I guess, more lately, that, not everybody has money, but everybody has time. Well, the staking system that we have now with the trust system, building up your trust and interest rate, was the first step to that. But then we're like, well, transactions can be free and people can run this app on their cell phone, just like some people in Africa have cell phones, but they don't even have fresh water. That's something that really puts that in everybody's hands. So the locking happens on that, and then you have the trust level locks on the second level with the Merkles, and then the miner level locks on the top that are basically verifying the same data themselves and agreeing upon that data, kind of creating a mining consensus instead of a one hash rules all. So the cool thing about this too is as the contracting systems evolve, like they're evolving in the Tritium code base, and they're obviously going to be expanding on Omni Vault and then Obsidian Mine, is that miners are doing a lot of work. So a lot of the generic processing, like bitwise operations or, arithmetic or anything else like that, can actually be done by miners, and processing. So the contracts can be processed in 3 steps. So like memory requirements can be done by the trust nodes, and then miners can be doing a lot of the actual generic processing, which is really cool because that architecture allows us to create a truly distributed computing model instead of a flood giant network computer that has to process the same thing over and over again. So this really allows us to open the doors to organic scalability, where the node count builds the scalability rather than reduces it. I think
I don't know if this helps build on your point, Colin, but how we were talking like 2 megabyte blocks every minute, and that's 20 times what Bitcoin is doing, what Nexus is doing.
Yeah, that's our current capacity. So we're not going to have those growing pains, especially, we're a lot smaller now, so I can't say that we have their transaction volume, but yeah, we have the scalability right now to be at least 20 times what Bitcoin is, while not having to worry about those other constraints. But, as this Tau framework evolves, seeing Tritium, we're shooting our goal, rough timeline is to have Tritium out by the end of the year. We figure it's a good time to get it out. And then, goals from there would be 6 months to a year for each, consecutive one. And then, Galactic Sky next year, obviously we're going to have some Nexus orbiting. So I think next year is going to be a really good year. And we want to set the stage for that with the new year. So that's our hard goal. And we have a lot more hands now too coding on it. So I'm pretty sure it's a feasible goal. Brian agrees. I agree. Yep. We have a lot. As he knows, software architecture is the most difficult and time-consuming part of it. And the architecture is pretty close to finalized, so it's now just the engineering, which he's, probably a little bit better engineer than me. I'm more of an architect. So, putting these things together, though, we're complementing each other's strengths, and it's growing. So that's a little bit, I guess, on some of the development timelines as well, kind of just came into context.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest topics right now is forking, and when you really take a step back and look at these hard forks, hey, that could be just hyperinflation almost, right? So as we look down the far road of the future of this technology, we want to know what these potential challenges are going to be. And I know that we were discussing ways this morning on how to kind of steer the course in that direction. I don't want to misspeak on it. But there was one other question that came in here that maybe you can shed some light on, Colin, or anybody. Will the Nexus transaction fee be lowered? It's kind of too high right now.
The fee is going to be completely eliminated because I think everybody deserves free transactions. So, instead of having a deflationary market collapse, kind of like Bitcoin has when it, backs up, the fees go way up. We're going to basically have free fees, and then there's going to be small amounts of Nexus that are minted by the transaction locking nodes. So we're essentially going to be having free transactions, and it'll be capable of that because the reason that you have transaction fees to start right now is to minimize dust spam attacks and everything of the sort. So that's something that's definitely in the works. And then, to get on the point where you're talking about forking, we definitely need to make sure that we're not forkable, because I think it's really bad for the name of Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin Gold right now has pre-mines going on right now. It's a little bit, for lack of better words, I don't want to get negative, but it's a little ridiculous, and it needs to be something that's rectified, because instead of cloning Bitcoin source, now people are cloning the Bitcoin blockchain, which is like the next step in cloning, which I personally believe in producing value in the industry, and I don't see how, doing this is going to help the Bitcoin ecosystem anymore.
Right. So, Colin, I've been using, an example, because I've been working on how do you explain Nexus in layman's terms. This is a big goal of mine, and it's a lot to explain. So I'm going to give my example, and then I want you to give any correction if and try and keep me in line. Okay?
Awesome.
All right. This is the way I envision it, is that Bitcoin code is built here, and then all the other coins are building on top of the Bitcoin code. And so the foundation of Bitcoin, my dad's a builder, so I use foundation talk a lot. So the foundation of Bitcoin is limited, and that's what causes its challenges, and everybody else is built on top. The way I envision it is Nexus has went in and built underneath, and it's expanded the foundation so that we have more capability within that. And so that's how I describe it. Now, not only can it do the monetary system better, it can also, because of all the reasons that Colin has been talking about, but it can also then actually stabilize the other things that can come within the blockchain technology, which is, I keep envisioning it like what internet did for business is what blockchain is going to do for business, like as in e-commerce, because we run an e-commerce company. And so does that sound about right, Colin? Like, am I kind of?
That's really, really good. I'd add one little fine detail, as you're saying, this is the base, we're coming under here, but we're also building the base out. That's a big, it was basically like when you build a tall building, you have to have a wider base. So we're building the underlayers down here. That's where the lower level library comes in with the lower level protocol, lower level database, all that. But then the 3DC is kind of like this instead of like this, so that as this industry evolves, it's capable of growing and scaling and building its foundation out instead of being to a set fixed width. This is our foundation.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this, the contracting engine and how it differs? I mean, I know you've talked about it already, but a lot of people are asking, well, is this going to be like Ethereum? Or are you guys going to be able to, you know, create new coins on your, or tokens on your blockchain? Can you explain your vision of how we're going to handle that, the contracting engine system?
Yeah, well, the contracting engine's not going to be Turing complete specifically because you don't want infinite loops, Ryan.
Can you explain what difference that makes? Like what Turing complete is?
You're not going to have security flaws like we experience with Ethereum, where they can run these huge, heavy commands and make these contracts run way longer. And they combat that with gas. But I mean, you don't really need that now. I mean, as far as the ICO type thing, I mean, that's something here, and I can talk about with some other projects that we're working on in unison. But I mean, we're going to call them kind of IAs. Like, they should be more reputable with the company. So there needs to be a bit more vetting. But I mean, you could theoretically make an asset on it. It's not going to be super easy, but it's going to be mainly for like business level contracting. I think that's a big thing. I mean, you'll be able to establish a token. You'll be able to send in and out. You'll be able to make a finance contract with your signature chain and say, let's say, hey, my son wants an allowance. I can put 100 Nexus in this contract, and then it can give him a deposit every time. Or developer contracts where developers are hired by the network vote and fired by the network vote, and they're paid from the network or from the developer reserves. Ambassador contracts, like everybody will vote for Vector and will say, we're going to buy 2 rockets and we're going to build this many satellites. And then the community has a way to vote and bring those funds in and out, rather than it just being, here's a simple contract with an address and you send ETH here and then there's no accountability. It'll be more accountability in that. And I think that's something that's missing on the contract and the token generation system. So that's something we're addressing. That's where it's nice, as we're sitting back and watching as the industry matures, we're seeing specifically what we can solve in some of the challenges and growing pains that a lot of these other currencies are experiencing at this time.
Where do you see that fitting in the timeline of the TAO updates?
So Tritium, we're going to be releasing some basic scripting, some, you know, I mean, we're going to just do some lower level, like bitwise operations, memory store, a few process, some things like that, and then higher level languages on top of that. But the whole Tau framework, I guess this is a good point of clarification. There's Tritium, and there's Amine, and there's Obsidian. So Tritium is activating the transaction level locks and signature chains. Amine is taking the proof of stake or the trust system that we have right now, and that's adding that into a second lock where they're locking all these transactions here. And then Obsidian Vault, that's where the miners are actually going to be working these intervals and submitting shares on it and doing some of that processing. So the contract architecture is going to be evolving through these 3 stages. We're going to have definitely preliminaries here and start working with that, and then saying, okay, well, we'd want to add a little more of this functionality, a little more of that through it. But by the time the Tau is done, our contracting architecture should be very well finalized. The whole actual multi-dimensional chain architecture should be finalized. We're calling it the multi-dimensional chain now instead of the 3-dimensional chain because, I mean, we want to be free to add another dimension or 2 if we want.
Yeah.
So
make sure there's lots of room to grow, because this is a big project.
Why we're going to limit ourselves? There's plenty of room to grow in this whole system, especially like, I mean, there's distributed types of systems. They can form subnetworks and grow and grow and grow. And I mean, it needs to grow with the world. And if we're based on some sort of scalability that's by a finite limit, we're always going to reach that limit, just like the debt ceiling. What happens whenever we hit the debt ceiling? We raise the debt ceiling, and then we raise the debt ceiling, and then we raise. And that's not a very efficient way to do it. It should, like a normal plant, I mean, it doesn't have an artificial limit. It just grows with what it's supplied with. And so that's something that we're kind of working off of too. And also, I mean, that's where we got into the DNA encoding and things like that. We're like, well, nature already does things way better than we do. I mean, studying the human body, we can find so much new technology. So, I mean, applying some of these ideas to like an immune system in Nexus that prevents, you know, viruses, which would be bad data or attackers, from injecting this false data, and it can fight it off because it knows its normal file rhythms, things like that. So it's going to become something, I mean, a lot more than I think any of us can truly imagine right now, especially as your creation creates you. As you create it further, it begins to teach you. from it. And that's, I mean, I guess just on and off topic, that's one of the most amazing things for me sitting back. Like, this was a dream so long ago. And I mean, Preston remembers too. We had this dream and this idea, but the beauty of the universe and the way things unfold is that they unfold in a way that's so much grander than we could have possibly imagined. We had the idea of what we wanted to do, but then when reality takes it and puts it to the world, it turns into something really incredibly beautiful, and it teaches us as well as we teach them.
I think like one analogy I love is we all love Uber. We all use Uber and Lyft, and if that Uber app took 30 minutes versus as fast as it is now, like, I don't need to know exactly how that's done. I just need to know that it's done, right? And so the foundation you build upon is so critical here. And hopefully there was one question here. What are the top causes the team sees for Nexus to start getting adopted as a mainstream cryptocurrency? I think hopefully we covered that for you. It's the scalability, it's the speed of the network, and then when it's fully built and designed, I mean, we're going to be laughing at the term smart contracts. It's going to be something well beyond what we currently know. And so I love what's happening with these Ethereum coins and the ICOs in the sense that they're exploring all these use cases, but it's built. Where is it built? If you have all these use cases built, but the foundation isn't wide enough to hold it, well, then it's only as good as its foundation. So, that's what I kind of see this as. And then I saw one other question about like, what is the use case for having the cube satellites? And was it for speed? I don't know, Colin, if you want to maybe touch briefly on that.
It is like an architectural component. So, I mean, I want to clarify, we have the cube satellites up here, which they're kind of the orbital mesh is what we're calling it. And then we're having the terrestrial mesh, which is on the ground. So the two will communicate with one another. But it's, for one, if you have, let's say, Europe and the US, and they need to communicate with one another, and we don't want to deal with transcontinental lines, because I don't know if all of you are familiar, the internet is run with big, giant cables strung across the ocean floor, and we can all imagine how many unreliable circumstances may happen, such as, there's certain islands that only have one single cable that's run by AT&T. So, I mean, the internet itself is wired, and it's controlled by central authorities. Now, when we're building this distributed system, we need to have our own hardware to complement that. So the cube satellites are one thing that bridge line of sight across the planet. They also allow you to store your keys up there. That's one thing that we're going to be working on for next year, which is going to be really fun. And then another thing, too, is to have backup of the blockchain data so that they can be pinged across. And we have our own communication grid, let alone people that are, let's say, in the middle of nowhere, don't have internet access. I mean, we were cursing cell phones on the whole way back from Aspen, saying we need these cube satellites already because we're not getting cell service, or we couldn't sync with the blockchain. If I needed to make a transaction and there's no cell service, or the internet's down, or even certain circumstances where Europe and the US have been cut off from one another for hours at a time at certain points. I mean, these cables their locations are very, very secret for good reason, because, that creates attack vectors in war. But I mean, this creates a more robust distributed system where, in order to shut down this new internet, this new network, you'd have to shut down every node that was running, every ground station, every client mesh device, and shoot down every one of the satellites. So it distributes it more, and it puts that as a network by the people for the people, where, like, the cell phone, let's pull it out of this and communicate with another cell phone over here, and they could do it peer-to-peer, just like they normally should. And then they can communicate to a ground station, and the ground station can communicate to the orbital mesh, and then it can go all the way over to Europe. And then we can form this zone where you just having these simple devices make the network, where that truly makes it by the people for the people. Just like you running a node on Nexus makes the network too. So this way we have hardware to complement the software so that they're both symbiotically intertwined. And then the network itself and NXS tokens are an incentive system where people that are processing routes or they're supplying for the network, it forms their own decentralized ISPs, which creates a more competitive system instead of a monopolistic system that we have with ISPs now, where there's one or two ISPs, if that, in the city, and you can't get access. And if the internet sucks, all you can do is complain. Well, we don't like to complain. We like to do things about these things. And we have these capabilities now, and that's something that's really exciting about what we're doing.
Yeah, and there's it's an alternative system too. So, I mean, people, when we talk about this, say, "Oh, well, you're eliminating the old." So we're not here to eliminate the ground-based system. we're here to add an alternative to the ground-based system. So, you know, for example, the Nexus network isn't only going to be on CubeSats. I mean, it's going to continue to function as it does now. It's just we're going to have a broader scope of our network.
Yep.
And I'm seeing people ask questions about like how many Cube satellites. So for those of you who haven't already watched the video of Jim Cantrell, not on the main stage from Aspen, but the like because there were several rooms having talks at several different times. So that's why we recorded everything. But if you watch Jim Cantrell's breakdown of vector space, you'll learn a lot. I don't know, Colin, if you want to touch. I mean, one thing that I pulled was he was saying you can build these cube satellites for like, I think he said, I can build you a cube satellite for, you know, 30 grand or so. It was something, you know, right. And it's the size of a loaf of bread, and people are asking, well, how many do we need up there and stuff? And I think when you watch that video, you'll have so much more context because it's such a big idea and there's a lot of education there.
I'll say that there's like a definitive number of sats we're going to put up. There's just, we're going to constantly be building the network. I mean, that's like saying, well, how many nodes are we going to make? How many people are going to be running this computer? As it grows, it's going to increase in the scalability because more satellites distribute more of the load. They get better ground coverage. So it's not going to be a set fixed number. Now, I mean, we're always going to be wanting to put new ones up, updating. So it's going to be a constant process.
Yeah, Colin, one thing I see people asking about the Tritium update, and is it running behind you? Can you enlighten them as to what's going on with Tritium and where you're at with it and how you like to test things?
Well, the difficulty with Tritium is it's a completely new protocol, I guess you could say. So, I mean, to not get too techy, the Bitcoin type packet is a little bit inefficient. So in order to do a complete packet redesign, you also have to have it capable of reverse connecting with the legacy protocol. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, is having this. It's kind of like putting a new engine in an old car. It's running great, and then the old car kind of has problems. So the Tritium protocol is running right now, testing, talking to legacy nodes, and I'm building the Tritium message sets right now with the new Tritium packets, which is going to open up a whole new plethora of communication abilities. So as you can see, we have this, and then I have Tritium running locally. I've done it on a couple test nodes, which is faster. It uses the LLP backend. So think about Bitcoin as like this, and I've basically gone through everything. The last thing that we have now is just the wallet class, and then there's no more real Bitcoin code left. And I mean, the reason for that is to work from proven code and then expand it, and you know, eliminate what needs to be eliminated, expand on what needs to be expanded on. But the LLP backend completely took the whole backend out of Bitcoin as far as the whole server processing, message processing, packet handling, connection handling, all of that. And it's solving a lot of these issues by implementing the lower level protocol, which is just, think about that as like, it's this base class. And then one efficiency in programming is you have one set of code that you can use over and over and over again. So the server itself is designed to be hyper efficient and hyper fast. And then I don't have to make sure I design it perfectly like that every time. I just have to make another class that wraps around this one and then has a different set of processing over here, but it still pushes that processing through the central core. So that's how the Tritium protocol is now. Now that's like, I call that a big, how do I call it? Not a resting place, but the milestone to the start of it. Now the Tritium trust algorithm, I could show people that, but that's already designed, it's already tested, it's already running. I've been running it on nodes for a long time. I mean, the lower level database we've been running for 1.5 years just to make sure we have it solid. So the trust system is something that you guys are gonna really appreciate, which that uses a positive trust and a negative trust. So what happens is if your computer goes off for a day and you've been staking for, let's say, 9 days, you slowly lose the trust based on that. But another component of it is weighting that on a difficulty, because as the difficulty goes up, it becomes increasingly difficult to find stake hashes in order to be able to prove your trust. And I think a lot of people are having difficulties with that because the initial architecture of this was 2015 with the staking system as we have it now. So with this new trust system, you're going to have your positive and negative benefits, and then that also continues on with your signature chain. So the last thing is the SIG chain, which you basically create your Genesis transaction, and then you have your whole track record, which allows you to create, let's say, escrow. Like if Brian and I have an escrow contract and we buy and sell something, and then Brian, he messes it up, and like, then we're like, and then we get rid of the trust on that. Like it'll show on your record, and it'll show, you know, a positive and negative. So instead of having a FICA score or whatever, you know, your credit is rated at, people we'll create kind of a pure type crediting system, and you'll have the mathematical proof of that. So signature chains also completely eliminate any worries of quantum computers, because as I'm sure a lot of you know, we use 571-bit keys right now in order to have a high qubit tolerance to make sure that we have the proper post-quantum algorithms in place. But Brian and I, over the last few days, especially expanding on the signature chain idea, have started to discover how we can make a very efficient hashing system with it, and we don't even really need to touch any of this asymmetrical encryption. So we're getting really close on that. So the combination of those things is what Tritium is going to be, and of course, the upgraded GUI. So, I mean, we're shooting to have some basic things done soon. Like the baseline Tritium is going to run way faster. It's going to be, I mean, way better looking. It's going to operate like we're going to have, you know, syncing is going to be, I mean, last time testing the Tritium syncing, just Tritium to Legacy, I was syncing in about 2 hours is about my maximum time. I was doing about 200 to 250 blocks per second, which was an incredible speed, because like Bitcoin just has to go message. Well, Tritium, what it could do is it says, okay, well, I can start downloading headers over here and building up the whole blockchain and my idea of it. And then I'm just going to slowly ask the other nodes in parallel all of the different blocks that they want. And so it allows, like, I noticed it was like 70 blocks per second on one node, and then it starts hopping up. And then the more nodes I get, the faster it gets. But my biggest challenge was the fact that the legacy protocol didn't like it, because Tritium was just like, da-da-da-da-da-da, and legacy was like, and then it just like didn't like it. So that's kind of a fun, unique challenge, I guess you could say, and also proving the capability. So as when the Tritium main level comes out, Tritium Trust is next. So Tritium Trust is the actual time lock activator, which is going to activate the new trust system. It's going to activate signature chain rules, things like that. Because when you upgrade consensus rules, they'll have to be at a specific time. Now, Bitcoin usually uses the block number. We use a timestamp since we have unified time. So you can see the countdown of knowing exactly when to be updated by, when these new rules will activate. But when we have Tritium out, it's going to be on the seed nodes. More of the minor nodes are going to be using it. So that's actually going to speed up the network throughput too. Blocks are going to relay on their own level. And we're also, I mean, somebody brought to the attention of the conference about IP multicast, and which is cool. I mean, just a little bit techie here is Transport Control Protocol, TCP/IP, is kind of an inheriting packet on top of the IP framework. Now, IP communicates directly with your routers, but what we actually just discovered is we can write raw packets and write an LLP/IP, which means we're going to have our own internet-based protocol with our own specific packet, which is going to be way faster. It's like UDP and TCP are right here. We're going down one level and we're making an LLP/IP, which is going to be super, super quick. So that's something, you may not include that in Tritium. It's probably going to be somewhere in the Omnium updates, but that's another thing that we're really excited about. I was happy to really learn that.
Yeah, so I know we're coming up on time here. It looks like we've it's 12:53. I don't know how long we were planning on going. I'm sure we could spend a lot of time, but
yeah, pretty good. Hours usually what we do for these types of things. So I mean, should we open the floor to everybody going around and finishing what I think we haven't heard from Keith, or should we get some questions? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was wondering what Keith is most excited about.
Here, Keith.
All right. Well, honestly, I'm excited about watching the network effect take hold. What we're seeing today is product or result of the efforts that we did literally a year and 2 years ago. So where are we going to be 2 years from now? I can only imagine in my wildest dreams, because I know where we're going from here. One thing that Nexus reflects that is a quality of Bitcoin is Metacast law and Moore's law. Both of those seem to reflect from, you know, in Nexus beautifully. So a lot of people are like, well, why are you making all these connections with all these different people? Because people are Nexus. I mean, that's one of the most important parts. What good is it without the people? You need the people, because without people, there's no network. And if the network ever goes down, it's people that are going to keep the network going, you know? And so that's the important part. And the other thing, you know, like he was talking about, you know, the satellites, you know, and the centralization of internet. Internet, the way it's set up is there's these one single points that are centralized and can fail. And what we're trying to do is just make it more decentralized, because the internet is decentralized, just not decentralized enough. And the more decentralized we make it, those little centralized points are not so weak anymore. And that hardware is important, because that hardware, like if you go back to Moore's law, the hardware is important with the software. The software is, you know, only as good as the hardware will let it. So we have to build the hardware infrastructure. We have to build the people infrastructure because that's the network. And we're doing that. We're making connections. I mean, it's growing and it's wild. You know, that conference blew me away. I wish everybody that missed it could have been there because I don't know anybody that was there that wasn't blown away. It really was a successful conference.
I left that conference with my nerves fried. So much stuff happened. I mean, I felt like I could literally like have my hair just because I felt like I just stuck my hand in a socket and just received a ton of energy.
And on my way back, I drove across the country. And on my way back, I was only about 10 minutes outside of Center City, St. Louis. And I'm sitting in a traffic jam, and I had 0 bars on my phone. I had no access to the internet, and my Pandora wasn't playing. I was like, man, I am 10 minutes outside a major city, and I don't have reception. This is ridiculous. And it was like that all the way across the country. I'm like, this whole the way everything was set up, and this kind of goes back to Colin and I and Preston. We had a conversation when we first talked, the 3 of us. It was about Tesla. And Tesla wanted to put, you know, all the, you know, electricity up into the atmosphere rather than run power lines. So what we're doing is we're running the internet on power lines instead of having it distributed everywhere.
Right.
So that's where we have to, you know, look at that. I mean, like, why are we running on wires? Wires are so 1900. It's the 21st century. So
exactly my thinking, especially stringing them across the ocean floor. Like, wait, sharks, whales, creatures we don't know down there. Like,
Earthquakes.
I mean, earthquakes. Yeah, and then, like they have to send scuba divers down there to like fix them. Or are we? Yeah, I know. But like, don't forget that like Tesla's wireless power, and I mean, it was originally going to be a wireless communication system because he actually found ways with super high voltage and high frequency, you actually create conduction in the atmosphere. So you can have like very little resistance. It almost turns the air into a superconductor. But you know, Wardenclyffe Tower, if anybody wants to research it, I would definitely recommend it. It's very, very fascinating research. Very, very. And it was destroyed because JP Morgan, our lovely you know, old adversary from the 1900s said, well, I can't meter that. You can't meter wireless power. Anybody can connect to that. So hence why we have wires.
So I have, you know, a couple of things that I really want for takeaway from today, and a couple of other things. A, this is not the size of our team, everybody. There's lots and lots of people out there helping, like Mr. Probs. I always use their Slack names. Mike Casey. There's tons of guys in Australia that are all awesome. And, you know, there's so many people contributing outside of what you're seeing right here. So I don't want anybody to think this is the size of the team, because it's not. And the other thing I want people to really know is, how do you get connected into Nexus and how do you help? So what I love about Nexus is anyone can buy Nexus right now. So you buy Nexus and then you can help build the company. It's like having your share of ownership in your own company that you can do a lot of things about, right? So I had no idea when I got involved, really involved. I mean, I was buying Nexus for a while, but I've been really involved for, I think, about 4 months. And I have really, there's a lot of stuff that you can contribute. And I think, you know, a lot of people don't know how much they can contribute. And I think the best way to find out is get involved in our Slack. Our Slack is on our website at nexusearth.com. So you can go there and join the Slack, and then just let us know what you're excited about helping with, and make sure you connect with somebody. We're all there to connect you in and do what we can to bring people in that will help it grow. I mean, if you're a good writer, help write an article. And somebody actually called me and said, you know, I really think you guys need to connect with this guy to do to analyze Nexus for you and the charts and stuff. And I said, okay, so, well, do we have to do it? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, can you? And I was like, that would be awesome. If you can reach out to that person that you're excited about, that's what helps Nexus grow like infinitely faster, because we have thousands of people helping around the world. So I want to personally thank everybody that has come in and contacted me and contacted anybody that you see here and reached out and started helping, just like I did. I was like, hey, let's start helping. And you can really affect change. This is like your first time, like it almost brings tears to my eyes that you can really affect change change and help make the world a better place for real. And it's a big deal. So I highly encourage you to get involved and hop on Slack and see what you can contribute. And even sometimes it's just little things like casting a vote. Like we're going up for Binance, right? Next month, am I right? Anybody, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes.
So we're going to be up for a vote, and I've never been a part of what a Binance vote is like. So, you know, those are the kinds of things you can contribute, like helping with the Binance vote. So, you know, get involved, like make a change in your world. It's exciting.
Right, and if you get involved and you see something that needs to be done, you can help organize it too. So you can become your own little node and help organize a little team that gets a little project done. Like that's the key thing to think about. But that being said, we are putting a lot of this stuff together so that when we go out with this Nexus Hub idea, we can have a big, long, you know, a big list or cache of things that we have come up with that are ideas that could be done or somebody can take on. So
yeah, get involved, change your world. It's been really fun. I've been so busy lately. I used to be a stay-at-home mom, not anymore. It's way different now.
Yeah, but to add on that, you know, it's great to see all these people helping out and making it a Nexus, because for a long time we didn't have this whole large group of people, and it's amazing that so many people are getting involved, so many people are helping out. You know, it also frees up a lot of us to do some other things, to, you know, to focus on different things, you know, when other people are helping out, even, you know, just participating in Slack and communicating to people through there and talking and keeping the conversation going and keeping things interesting and bringing up new topics. I mean, even little things like that, just it helps build the community, and it helps provide a good place for people to come to. So it's just an amazing thing, and I love seeing all this new activity. It's a wonderful thing to see.
And we're just getting started.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Really, you've been started, and Nexus has been started for years, everybody. So it's been running for years. It's not an ICO. It's grown from the ground up. Everybody know that. It's grown from the ground up, and it's just going to keep growing. So it's a seed Colin planted a long time ago. Let's help it grow.
And go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube page, like, comment, share. Let's help get that message out there, because, you know, with Kier and Jacinda and I working with our company Time, we do e-commerce all day, so we spend a lot of money to get ads out there, but I know the power of organic action. Yeah. And so if you want to help, there's one way you can do it right now. So, you know, and ask us what you guys want, and we'll build the team to be able. We've already got Wendy in there and a few other people who are going through and commenting, and Keith. And so, you know, interact, start the conversation, because we're open. Let's have it.
Right on.
Yep.
Well, I guess this has been an awesome YouTube Live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for bearing with. I'm glad that we got to have this updated. We're going to be shooting to do these more. So, I mean, leave us some comments if you liked it and suggest some things that we should do next time, because I think this is a really good way for everybody's personalities to show through, all of us to be here, get more people in, introduce new people, do Q&As. Like, it really helps keep the community involved really well. So, you know, keep your eye out for future YouTube Lives and future newsletters, and keep on keeping on, everybody.
Yep, everybody's wondering what's running on your computer in the background. That's Nexus, everybody.
Yeah, that's Nexus.
All right. Don't forget the hero in the group, Nexus, running in the background. Okay.
Matrix.
Nexus meet world. World meet Nexus. There it is.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.